Hello, I'm Matt Williamson, coming to you from Indianapolis at the Combine. This will be my last night here. Thursday I'm recording this. So the D-line has yet to work out, but we previewed those defensive tackles that are really Steeler relevant. And got a lot of good comments back from you guys that you really appreciated, who to look for, what to look for, even if you're just going to review the numbers. Or a lot of you guys watch the Combine, which is super cool. I always say my least favorite part of coming to the Combine is I don't get to watch the Combine until I get home. But the upcoming Friday, we're going to get defensive backs and tight ends. I'm kind of going to ignore safeties because if the Steelers draft a safety, I expect it to be round 5 or later, special teamer type, maybe a safety with big slot capability. So we're not going to really stress those guys. I also think there's a really good chance that the Steelers spend money on a corner from outside the organization, and maybe it limits that need quite a bit come draft day, but we don't know that. And I do think this corner draft is pretty interesting for the Steelers in a good way. So let's start digging into those guys. First off, Travis Hunter, the more I watch this guy, is remarkable. Call him a corner, call him a receiver, call him both. I think he's the best corner and best receiver in this draft. And folks, he's not going to be a Steeler. So we could probably move on from Travis Hunter from Colorado. Where it starts to get interesting, though, is Will Johnson from Michigan. Tremendous football player. Had kind of a down year. Michigan won the whole thing 2 years ago, and he was one of the best players in college football and a tremendous prospect. There were some injuries this year. They were out of it, maybe a little bit of senioritis, just a hunch, and didn't have as good a year. I'm sure anyone on the planet would tell you that. A big thing for him is what will he run? And 40 times for corners are maybe the most important position for 40s. That being said, unless he runs a 4.62 or something crazy, folks, he's not going to be a Steeler either. Maybe he slips a little and gets to 14, 15, and the Steelers go up to get him because I think he's like the perfect fit for what they're after. But I don't foresee that at all. But I'm a big Will Johnson fan, to be honest with you. Another guy that I think is a really tremendous all-around football player that would be kind of exactly what the Steelers need is Jahdae Barron from Texas. And remember, Trice is still in the mix as an outside corner too. And I bring that up because Barron is kind of the Cooper DeJean, Brian Branch of this draft, where A-plus slot guy, but also can play deep middle, deep half, safety. He can be an outside corner. Not the biggest, not the best tester, my guess, but just a real good all-around football player that really sees things well. He's very easy to like on tape. I don't think he'll blow your doors off testing. I would strongly consider him at 21. And I think players like this are becoming more and more in vogue. I mentioned Branch and DeJean because I kind of make the joke that they tie the room together. Like whatever you need them to do, plug them in and they can do it for you. This week you need them to cover a slot. This week you need to cover a tight end. This year you need him to be an in-the-box player. This week he has to be an outside corner. Check, check, check. I'll do any of them, coach. Sign me up. That's Jahdae Barron. A really interesting player to me is Siobhan Revell from East Carolina. I don't think he's going to work out. He hasn't announced that yet, but he is coming off a season-ending injury. Remarkable traits. Makes it look easy at like 6'3", 200 pounds with crazy long arms. My hunch is if you guys don't even listen to this podcast and turn on the cornerback workouts, you'll be like, who is that guy? Yes. And he is an extremely fluid mover. If corner is still a big need on draft day, Revell and Barron couldn't be any more different, but those are the two that I really am targeting for the Steelers in the first round. And frankly, if Revell would have been healthy from start to finish, or maybe even by the time rolls around, he starts testing and we're talking about him as like a top 10 pick, that wouldn't shock me either. But it could work to their advantage, in terms of getting him at a discount. But boy, his traits are crazy. And he's a good player too. He's not just a physical specimen. Thomas from Florida State is another guy I like quite a bit. Now we're starting to get into like the round 2 guys. Length, he has the look that the Steelers want from those outside long corners. He's not as big as Trice or Porter, but he's not far off. Something that you always have to look at corners and wide receiver is how much man coverage do you get to see and evaluate at the college level. And usually it's very, very little press man coverage, but that's Thomas's specialty, which makes me think he's more NFL ready. And on a team that things didn't go well for Florida State, he certainly was not the problem. But he could be an outside man coverage corner for you, and that has a lot of value. Speaking of Porter, Darian Porter from Iowa State is probably the other one like Ravel that if you know nothing about any of these guys, you'll be like, who is that? This dude is a tall, angular, Porter Trice body type with ridiculous track skills. Developing football player, but not track guy with pads on. I mean, I think Porter's going to go really high in this draft. By that, I mean like second round. I mean, a lot of people are talking about like, oh, you get that guy on day 3. No. Not after he works out here. Maxwell Hairston's another day 2 guy I think is really interesting from Kentucky. More of an outside player, takes the football away. A little leaner than I'd like, though. I mean, I think his physicality and ability to come influence a run and things like that worry me quite a bit. Trey Amos from Mississippi also projects as an NFL starting corner with the size the Steelers are looking for. Certainly some cover 3 skills as well as man coverage skills. Benjamin Morrison's a name from Notre Dame that people have known kind of forever. He's been mocked in the first round basically his whole career. But he suffered a hip injury this year that ended his season. And from what I understand, it's his second hip injury of his career, going back to high school. And a hip injury for a corner, fluid hips, oily hips, flip your hips. I hate the sound of that. So medical is going to be extremely important for a guy like Benjamin Morrison. That's a big one to me. Now, there's a ton of other names I'm not going to dig as deep into, but I just want you to hear their names. Zy Alexander from LSU. I think all these guys could absolutely be in the mix. Probably third-ish round for the Steelers. Jacob Parrish from Kansas State. Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech. Tommy Hill is a really fun watch from Nebraska. Noel Williams from Cal is another one that I think is really interesting. So it's Quincy Riley from Louisville is a name I want you guys to know as well. And then another one that's a little bit down the line. He's shorter. Western Kentucky's Upton Stout. Mike Hilton. Feisty, bulldog, shorter. Kind of runs like a safety, but makes a ton of plays near the line of scrimmage. Slot only. Probably a demon on special teams. 5th rounder, maybe the 4th, depends how he tests here. But Upton Stout is a guy I want you guys to know too. So I gave you a lot of corner names, and they were all very Steeler relevant to me. So I absolutely think this draft sets up well for Pittsburgh at corner. But I also think free agency sets up well for Pittsburgh at corner. So I would be shocked if the corner room isn't drastically elevated in one way, shape, or form this offseason. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA to college basketball to the NHL and UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. So as mentioned, tight ends are also going to be working out on Friday. Why do we care about that? Come on, Matt. I mean, they don't need any more tight ends. I kind of agree, but this is a really good tight end class. So just remember that between now and the draft, Steelers roster is going to look a lot different. Maybe they have a corner locked up. Maybe Cooper Kupp's a Steeler. Whatever. There's going to be fewer needs for sure. For sure. I mean, what else are we doing here? And they lead the league in 13 personnel with 3 tight ends on the field. And of course, Freiermuth and Washington are keepers, and I love Washington. But other than that, who are you counting on? I mean, I don't know that Pruitt's going to be back. I don't know that Hayward's going to make the team. You play a lot of 12 personnel, and what if one of your top 2 guys gets hurt? So I just wanted you to be aware of names I like at the tight end position. And if this tight end class wasn't really, really good, it's one of the best classes out there, along with running back, D tackle, as we talked about yesterday. This corner class, as I mentioned, is pretty strong as well. That I think you're going to see 2 definitely go in the first round. You're probably quite familiar with Tyler Warren from Penn State. My hunch is he'll be long gone before the Steelers. And Colston Loveland from Michigan, much more receiver than blocker. But these 2 are first-round tight ends. I have little doubt that they'll both go in the first, maybe both in the top 20. But the other names, I'm not going to dig into these like I did corner as much. But all these names I'm about to tell you interest me later in the draft. And Mason Taylor from LSU, bring him back to, Daddy went to high school in Woodland Hills, Jason Taylor. I think he's probably pricier than the Steelers are going to invest in a tight end. I mean, he's a day 2 guy, probably a round 2 guy. Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, super productive against bad competition. I don't think he really fits the mold. Gunnar Helm from Texas is a really good after-the-catch player. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame is that 2-way tough guy that I think they'd be in the market for. If they do add a tight end, I think it'll be an all-around, every down but number 3 type end. So like a 5th-round pick, maybe a 4th-round pick. Thomas Fedone from Nebraska is kind of interesting as well. Jackson Hawes, Hawes from Georgia Tech, is a killer in the run game. I mean, he'd be a lot more Washington than move-around guy. Elijah Araujo is the guy I should have mentioned earlier, but I think much like Taylor will be long gone before the Steelers get in the tight end market. Really good Senior Bowl receiver, productive, explosive, round 2 type of guy. Terrence Ferguson's one of those dudes from Oregon that would be a 2-way tight end that you would certainly be interesting. And then a guy I really am intrigued with is Luke Lachey from Iowa. You might remember his dad, Jim. He was a Pro Bowl left tackle. Iowa tight end sort of speaks for itself. Laporta, Hawkinson, Kittle, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone that comes out of there is a killer blocker, and Lachey is no different, like his daddy. Had some injuries and didn't move nearly as well this past year, played through a lot. But boy, his makeup and with a healthier season could be a really nice addition as a 3rd tight end for the Steelers. So just want to touch on those before you dig into combine stuff. Again, unfortunately, I can't record anything on Friday. I probably will get you something over the weekend, though. I'm going to be traveling. I'm on the air 5 days or 5 hours on Friday and then have like a 6-hour ride home. So Friday, you will not be getting anything. But other than that, we start keep talking draft stuff, and if anything else cracks in the league, then we'll hit it. All right, take care.